Okay.
Good evening, everybody. We'll get started here. I just wanted to bring greetings from Community United Methodist Church. I'm Doug Wood. I'm one of the lay leaders there, and I've been involved with some of the gun violence prevention things going on here in Muskegon since, well, I taught, or I was an educator in Kalamazoo and got involved with gun violence prevention back in the 70s and 80s when Kalamazoo was erupting, and we had to do some things. And so that's where my interest and my passion for my kids was born. But then when I came back to Kalamazoo, or back to Muskegon, I learned of some of the things that were going on here. And but the one thing that got me going was attending a United Methodist Church Advocacy Day in Lansing, where I got to spend a day with a bunch of folks that had the same passion, and we got a chance to talk to legislators and legislative staff about the gun laws that they were getting ready to vote on. And you may know that effort was pretty successful. One of the pieces of paper that you have in your hand is the next Advocacy Day for End Gun Violence in Michigan, and they're going to be talking about how we can keep those gun laws strong and not let them be eroded. So that's one piece. You can go to that website and you get some information. The other greeting I bring from you, I bring from Reverend Ian Boley, who is he's at our conference, at our Michigan conference. His role is to lead a task force on community violence and intervention. And I couldn't be here tonight, but I wanted to let you know that the United Methodist Church has a strong part of our social principles that make gun violence prevention something really our calling. And one of the other pieces of information you have there is called a Faith and Facts brochure, and it will give you some scripture, some of the thought that goes behind the end gun violence prevention in our United Methodist Church. And then, but it's my job really to bring on these folks that are going to be sharing with us tonight. I'm excited to have them all here in the room. So Marquette, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll start with MVP. And for my presenters, they have control of the slides. So give them a good thumbs up or next slide or something like that.
Good evening, everyone. Hey, y'all. I'm just a little nervous, I will tell y'all, but we here, we doing it, you know. My name is Marquette McDaniel, and I am one of the youth administrators and facilitators for Muskegon Violence Prevention. We are a youth-led gun violence prevention group of 15 youth and 3 advisors. Today, I'm just here to tell you guys a little bit about us. Our vision statement is, we imagine a community where everyone belongs and can be themselves without judgment or fear. And then our mission statement is, MVP centers youth voice in gun violence prevention with a focus on education and community building. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Some of MVP's work that we have done, we serve as the Youth Advisory Board for UFM, Youth Violence Prevention Center. We attend a learning exchange with Washington, D.C. Trigger Project Youth. That is our sister program located in Washington, D.C. We co-hosted Violence Knows No Boundaries events with Livability Lab, Thursday, June 12, 2025. Hopefully you guys caught that. If not, be sure to catch our next one. Some more work that we do is we attend community events and conferences like this one. We raise awareness about gun violence prevention in Muskegon County through outreach, events, social media, and training. We had a youth summit Thursday, November 13th, 2025. I see a few familiar faces. Be sure to be at the next one, though, guys. And then we actually lead a public health campaign, which we'll talk about more later on. Next slide, please. Gun violence is a public health issue. Now, many may not see that as a public health issue, but when you start to break it down into introspection, this is why it becomes a public health issue. Gun violence can affect the community physically by losing a new community member or even an old community member in general. It affects you mentally, you know. When you lose somebody, it's like, I'm never going to be able to see you again. I'm never going to be able to talk to you again. You know, it starts to weigh on your mind, like, who am I going to lose next? When is the next death coming? You know, and those aren't thoughts that we want to have. It affects you emotionally. You know, you're just lost your loved one. You're never going to see them again. And it's like, if we could come together as a community, we can actually help this public health issue, you know? If we can raise awareness, get people engaged, get people connected, we can be proactive instead of reactive and always be on the end line and not the front line of the situation. Next slide, please. Surviving versus thriving. Have you ever been at a point of time in life where you were living, but you weren't really living? You were just doing things that didn't really have a purpose, things that just kind of made sense to do because you felt like it was keeping you alive. That's surviving. It's keeping you in a place where it's like, okay, how am I going to eat today? How am I going to get from point A to point B? How am I going to get this money for my kids' medicine? You know, it keeps you in a place of like, oh, I can never really let go. I can never relax. I always have to work for something. Whereas thriving, it's like, okay, I'm living. I don't have to worry about where my next meal is going to come from. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to get to point A to point B. I can provide for others. I can show up for myself, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it to the audience for you guys to reflect on the time where you were surviving versus where you were thriving. Okay, guys. This is that moment of reflection. Okay, I'll give you guys an example of when I was surviving and thriving. I'm currently a college student, and I have a job. But, you know, life is starting to be more than my job. It's starting to be more than school. It's starting to become survival. I live in a community where gun violence is increasing daily. You know, I sit in my room, I sit by my window, I can hear gunshots from every direction. I have to live in fear of when will that next bullet come to me. You know, bullets have no name on them. And it's like I could just be sitting at home and I could be dead. And that sucks, you know, that's survival mode. But with the help of Muskegon Violence Prevention and my advisor, Lauren Meldrum, I could be in the thriving mode with her providing a safe place for me to come to have connections with counselors and psychologists and therapists and other people who can help me get to a better place. I can be in thriving mode. I can go home and feel protected because I know if anything does happen, I have a safe place to go and I have a safe person to get into. Thank you, guys. There's also a question on here that say, what factors contributed to you struggling? For me, it's really just community placement. At one point in time, Muskegon Heights was a lovely community, very family-centered, family-style. You know, I could go next door, ask my neighbor, hey, you got some sugar, you got some butter? You know, they could come over, ask me for a favor. Now, your neighbor could be the next person that's targeting you. Now, somebody at your school could have a grudge with you, and now you're on their list to die. You know, the world is such a scary place, and it's like, how can we restore that community feeling again? Next slide, please. Okay, so we did have a video to play. However, the video link wasn't really working, so we're going to skip past our video. But what we can talk about is what's underneath it. Gun violence is more likely when a brain is in stress mode, think, flight, or freeze, when it is hard to access the thinking brain and decision making. For all of you who don't know, flight or freeze is like, okay, let's say a gunman just pulled a gun on you. Are you going to run, which is flight, or are you going to freeze, which is just stay in there and potentially being shot? And, we never really think that when we go into flight or fight mode that we're in danger, but you are in danger. Your brain isn't going to put you in a position to where you have to leave or stay for no reason. And it's like, we have to look at the factors that contribute to that. Things such as trauma, the ACEs, the exposure to gun violence. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room can reflect on the time where they were in a stressful situation, something traumatic happened in life. Did you run or did you stay? Did you fight or did you freeze? How did it make you feel? What did you want to do after the situation? These are things that we can help you with if you just come, talk to us a little bit. Ooh, are you an ASL? Oh, I'm so sorry to call you out like that, ma'am. I just thought that you was doing the sign language to me. Next slide, please. The slide has appeared twice. Do I go through it twice? Huh? Right, okay. All right. Next slide, please. Okay. Why youth voices needed. If you guys didn't know, I'm the youth. I'm only 19. And it's not many youth here, but there are a few youth here, and this is why their voice matters. We are the future, No shade, but all of you guys have already been in the youthful place before, okay? We love the elders, but that's what y'all are now, Y'all done gave what y'all could give up to the community, and now it's time for people my age, people younger than me to come up and come and rise. We are the future. We are what's going to lead the next generation upwards, but we can still do that with the help of you guys. Adults do not fully understand our lived experience in 2026. As I mentioned older, you guys are full of wisdom. However, though, times have changed and your wisdom has to change with it. There are a lot of things that you guys can learn from the youth. And even though most of you seem like open-minded people, there are some who are like, oh no, the youth can't tell me nothing, or public health officials who feel like, oh, because we're younger, we don't know much. But we're the eyes and ears of the street. When something happens in this community, you don't go to the news. You don't go to one another. You come to a youth. You go to your grandchild like, hey, you heard about that shooting on the news? Or like, you heard about little Roscoe running out the stove? Yeah, y'all come to us for y'all information. So it's like, if you can come to us for information, just, for a piece of the ear, be able to come for that information and learn from that information as well. Just give us a few minutes of your time, just like how y'all doing me. I know a few of y'all impressed. I done messed up a little bit, but y'all still feeling me. So, just give the rest of you some time. And then lastly, we could be part of the solution by working together within our communities. There are a few community partners that I have in this room: Dr. Brian Stork, Health West, Jennifer De La Cruz, the Methodist Church. Now, we're all one family. We all have the same purpose. Everyone wants to live at the end of the day. We want to survive. We want to thrive. Therefore, if everyone has the same mission, why aren't we all coming together as one? We all preach about community, but then we still segregate our communities. Think about it, guys. Next slide, please. Okay, and then this is where we get into our public health prevention campaign. So we have something called Anonymous Story Box, and our campaign name is Our Stories and Our Strengths. Our Stories, Our Strength is an anonymous, youth-driven social media campaign that creates a safe, confidential platform for young people to share the real impact of gun violence in their lives and communities. We're going to do this through educational videos, Instagram reels, graphics, resources, and stories on social media. You guys can get involved with Our Stories and Our Strength. We're not going to release your name. We're not going to release your information. We just want to help you guys. We want to be that listening ear for you guys, but we also want to provide you with resources that can help you get the help that you need. Back in 2024, I lost my friend to gun violence. He had took his own life, and it had really hurt my feelings. It really put me in a dark place. But MVP had provided the community resources necessary as far as hooking me up with Health West. Now I got me a real cool therapist. Shout out to Amanda. Provided me with work. Thank you for keeping me employed, y'all. Y'all know I love to make that money, y'all. But, connecting me with people like you, even though you guys are older and that can already be a barrier, today we broke that barrier, Y'all are receiving me, I'm receiving y'all, and just like that, I just showed y'all how adults and kids can work together. We can be one. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Okay, y'all, this probably finna look real funny, but because I was finna zoom in on my phone because I can't see y'all, but I got it now. Okay. For our youth-driven recommendations, drawn from the campaign, we will develop actionable recommendations for system providers, community leaders, and policymakers based on youth insights about what they need to thrive. We don't want to just say, hey, we're going to host this campaign, and then that's the end. We want to see real change come from it. Therefore, after this campaign is over, we're going to the policymakers. We're going to the business shakers. We're going to the movers and the steppers, y'all. We're going to make sure that y'all voices get heard because we don't want to just say, hey, we're here for the community, and then y'all never see us. And a lot of community groups, however, unfortunately do that. And we want to be the change. We want to show you guys that we walk with you. We stand with you. We are here for you. Therefore, next slide, please. Learn how to get involved with us. Y'all can follow us on social media and share our content. Now, as I did say earlier, y'all all are a wiser group of people. So y'all may not have Instagram, but y'all can get on Facebook. Or I know somebody grandkid got Instagram. Y'all can follow us at Muskegon Violence Prevention. That is where we post our pictures, our community outreach. For the people who do have Facebook, I be on Facebook, y'all, so y'all can always find something on there. Implement services, policies, practices based on youth recommendation. We're really trying to empower the youth, if you guys couldn't tell. We really want to uplift and drive the youth to be the change. If everyone could just allow a youth in their life to just give them just a few minutes of your time. Ask them, how can I help you be better today? How can I make a change in your future? Make them feel seen, make them feel heard. As youth, our voices are always being diminished by societal pressures, by societal norms, by age of the society. And it's just if we say that we want youth to be the change, we have to make them feel like they have something to change, and they do. Their impact matters. Therefore, just ask them, hey, how can I help you today? Help connect us with partners and funders. Okay, guys, we do work on the grant, guys, and our grant, unfortunately, is coming to an end September 30th, 2026. Such a sad time. It seems like so many months away, but y'all just seen how January just came and went, right? So imagine September, y'all. We're not asking for much. We're not even asking for a lot. Donate your time. Donate your building spaces. Donate yourself, We have a lot of events coming up. I want to see these same faces, I want to be walking down the street and I get me a little up on my shoulder. Somebody be like, oh, didn't I just see you speak at the church? Yes, you did, and I saw you in the audience. I want y'all to get connected. I want us to feel like a family. So I'm going to extend this hand for MVP. Y'all see that hand out there. And, I want to let you guys know y'all are now a part of MVP's family. Come to our community events. Come and see us. We got y'all back. Y'all got our back. Let's support each other. And then lastly, donate funds to support our work. Now, I done heard the audience share a few laughs, so I know y'all like me. I know y'all think that I'm funny and stuff, real cool. Y'all cool, too. And it's if you want to keep on seeing this coolness, support us, Donate. We just need a few bucks, y'all. See, look at that. But no, seriously, donate to keep our work going. Donate to keep our mission going. We now have a youth-led violence prevention group in Muskegon. And I know we haven't had one in some years. And I know you guys want to see something sustainable. You guys don't like to see programs come and then leave after a few months, right? Right. So therefore, just donate us a few bucks. When you thinking, oh, let me go buy that $5 scratch off, send that $5 to MVP. When you sitting here saying, oh, I could go out to Applebee's for appetizers and drinks, you can't. You can cook at home and you can give that money to MVP. And then, we can come to the church. We can cook us a nice meal, family dinner style for free. And then we could take the proceeds. That way we could keep on giving back to the community. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. And therefore, we need you guys to stay here. Thank you for your time, guys. Marquette, I'm out. Huh? Tell us how to give. Oh, this is how you can give. My advisor is actually in the room. Her name is Lauren Meldrum, right here in the second corner with this orange hoodie on. Sorry to call you out, homegirl. But, we don't have like a GoFundMe page or anything. But, if you guys want to give me a little bucket, we can all put $1 in there. There's about 30 of us in the room. We can walk out with $30 for MVP right now, guys. But other than that, if you go to the MAISD building at 630 Harvey Street, you can donate something through your, if it's something like equipment or your time or even a few bucks, just go ahead, write your name on it so we know who it came from. We want to thank you at the end as always. And then you can leave it there. Therefore, when we go to our meal, we could just pick it up then. Yes, sir. Yes. I know that's right. Mary, I think I like you. Mary, Marquette, double M's, yeah, yes. Yeah, you got a quieter voice than me, Lauren.
So right now, most of the funds for MVP are housed.
No, they want you on the mic.
Hello. Right now, most of the funds are housed for MVP at University of Michigan's Youth Violence Prevention Center. However, the administration funds for the events we hold, the food for our meetings, that kind of thing, goes through an organization called Every Voice. So that's the fiduciary. So if you were going to write a check right now, it would be to Every Voice, and then in the memo line, you would write MVP. Okay? It's not online, but you could give it to me or mail to 131 California Avenue. And I could send this to Doug, too, if... we're thinking about, do we need a nonprofit and apply for that kind of status, post-grant? But right now, that's kind of the structure. Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Ooh, shout out to Mary, y'all. Let's give her a round of applause. All right, y'all, because I don't want to take up too much more of y'all time, but I do want to thank you guys for, giving me your time. As I told y'all earlier, I was real nervous, and normally I don't get nervous when it comes to speaking to people because I love to run my mouth. But, I was a little nervous this time. We had a few slip-ups, but, we bounced back like a rubber band. See, I just taught y'all something new. Y'all could go ahead and pass it on to y'all grandkids. But I'm going to go ahead and give the mic up to Doug. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you guys for listening. Woo!
Well, I'm going to apologize to Brian Stork right now because he has to follow that. But thank you, Marquette, for your wisdom and your energy. So our next speaker is Dr. Brian Stork from Safer Teens.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doug, for helping to coordinate this. And I'll take my first slide if we have it. They say, when you give a talk, you need to know your audience. And so I, like Marquette, usually view gun violence prevention through a public health view, but tonight I thought maybe I'd try to view it through a faith lens, because that helps me, and hopefully it will resonate with you. I'll be talking about Safer Teens. Safer Teens is a specific program. It's funded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We have a grant, 5-year grant, as Marquette told you. And that grant is going to be up in September. So I'm going to start with Jesus, and I'm going to end with Jesus. Can I have my next slide? So I grew up Methodist in a small town in eastern Iowa, and this church still exists, and you can take a picture of it in color now, but this is how I remember it, because I'm old, Marquette. Thank you. And growing up in a Methodist church, went to Sunday school, had communion, did all sorts of stupid stuff up in the balcony, but really developed a moral compass, was taught a moral compass, was taught a spiritual framework. And more importantly, I think the thing that I loved about the Methodists is that they do stuff. And we're seeing that tonight, and just all of the stories that you hear about what this church is doing and the other Methodist churches. Some churches argue about liturgy or communion or whatever, but Methodists do stuff. And that really resonated with me. And so I think in your faith journey, things go good for a while, and then all of a sudden something happens that really makes you question your faith. And I was friends with a young man growing up named Troy Franklin. Troy lived in a town about 15 miles from mine. We competed against each other in athletics. And one evening, Troy's mother shot her husband, her 3 children, and then herself in Appleton, Iowa. And I've never really fully recovered from that, and I think Marquette maybe gave you some insight as to what it's like to lose people in your life to gun violence. And I think the trauma that caused our collective communities and really caused me kind of puts you into this survival mode where all you can think about is getting out, But after that point, all I wanted to do is get out of Iowa. And it's not fair to Iowa because I like Iowa and I still have family in Iowa, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. And so I moved here, I was in practice. I practiced at Hackley Hospital a lot. I loved Hackley. And in 2015, 2017, some of you may remember we had a big uptick in gun violence in our community. And I took care of a number of those youth. And then there was this shooting across from Hackley, this young man, Zamarian Cooper, who was killed. He was at his sister's birthday party and was just killed by a bullet with no name on it. And, Zamarian Cooper reminded me a lot of Troy Franklin. And, whether you're a white person in a rural community or, an African-American person in Muskegon, I don't think it really matters. The bullet's the bullet and the outcome is the outcome. So, being raised in the Methodist church, I thought, well, what are we going to do? And I asked around, and it sounds like in healthcare we weren't doing anything really other than putting people together and sending them back out on the street. So I happened to actually work for the University of Michigan, and Lauren and a woman named Holly Alway, who's the injury prevention coordinator at Trinity Health Muskegon. We made some phone calls, and it turns out that the University of Michigan has a youth violence prevention center. There's 5 of these centers across the United States. They kind of fly under the radar, but they do research on youth violence prevention. And they developed a program called Safer Teens. This is actually a video. I don't think it's going to play here today, but just briefly, Safer Teens is a 30-minute one-on-one intervention. So the idea behind Safer Teens is that we screen youth for risk factors for violence. Have you been in a fight lately? Have you thought about, shooting someone? Has someone tried to shoot you? I mean, these are real serious questions that we ask, and then when youth, if they screen positive, they're offered this one-on-one, one-time intervention in the emergency room. That's why it's called Safer Teens, because it was developed by ER physicians. And during that intervention, we ask, hey, what are your goals in life? How might drugs and alcohol and violence interfere with those goals? Here are some techniques that we can share with you and some scenarios we can run through to help you kind of think about how you can avoid situations that might come your way. And it's been shown to be very effective. It was tested in Flint. They did multiple randomized control tests in Flint that showed that this was really effective. And so we were part of are part of an implementation study where we took this Safer Teens program that was developed at the University of Michigan, and we implemented it into healthcare here in Muskegon. So the 4 sites, Muskegon Pediatrics, the Muskegon ER, or Trinity Health, or whatever we're calling it today, ER. And then they have a family practice residency program out in Fruitport, so it's implemented there as well, and then Health West. And the idea was to try to understand the barriers to implementation of this type of program, but more importantly, in doing that, our youth were able to receive this intervention for free. So it helped the researchers and it helped us, or it is helping us. And when I contacted the University of Michigan and they came back with this program, I thought, man, this is going to be a slam dunk, right? How hard is it for someone in the ER to ask somebody 3 questions, pick up the phone and call somebody to do an intervention? And it turns out it's really, really hard. I think it just feels like everything is hard these days. But these are graphs, and they show, on the left-hand side, they show the progression of how many screenings we did over time. And on the right-hand side, it's how many interventions we did over time. And then we would change our process. So initially, we had the nurses do the screening, and then later, we had the reception people do the screening. That was a dramatic improvement. And then on the intervention side, we started with the social workers. That didn't work. Then we tried the chaplains. That worked a little bit better, but really didn't work. And now we're using community health workers, and that has worked the best, but there's still variation day to day, month to month. So I think one of the most important things we've learned out of the healthcare side of this study is that it's hard. It's hard to implement these programs. And that community health workers are a really good source of community knowledge, not only about what's going on in the community, but also about the resources that can be utilized in the community. And they're really good at giving this intervention. So we were able to get another grant from the Department of Justice. And we did this for 2 reasons. 1, because we wanted to move into the schools, and 2, off the record, I was a little bit embarrassed about how bad we were doing in healthcare with this program. So this is a picture of our 4 community health workers. They're employed by Trinity Health Muskegon, but the funding comes from various sources to the hospital. In our 3 public school districts that we're in right now are Muskegon Heights, Muskegon, and Orchard View. And these were chosen due to truancy rates. So truancy is felt to be a risk factor among many other risk factors for violence. And at the time, these 3 school districts had the highest truancy rate when we applied for the grant. And I'm not going to tell you which school district this is, because when you work with the schools, maybe understandably, I didn't understand this at first, but they really don't want you to know how much violence is occurring in their schools. It's kind of a black eye, for lack of a better term. And when we started these programs, we started these as gun violence prevention programs, but if I had to do this all over again, I wouldn't use that terminology, because schools don't want to talk about maybe having a gun violence problem, right? We live in a world where language is really important, and maybe helping youth thrive, maybe avoiding violent incidences. I don't know how we have to frame it in the future, but preventing gun violence maybe isn't going to be a good sell with parents and school board members, depending on the district. But this is some early data. I don't know if you can read this or not, but we've seen a dramatic drop in aggressive behaviors in the school district that I'm showing you here. And of course, this is real world research, so there's been administrative changes at this school. Every year, 1/4 of the student body changes. So it's really hard to say, it's due to our program, but we think it's making a difference. I know it's making a difference because the community health workers are embedded in the school, and the kids keep coming to see the community health workers. So the model's a little different in the school. We give the intervention, but the community health workers there, the kids come back for candy, they come back for, I'd never even heard of this, fidget toys. They're like handing out fidget toys all the time. And one of my observations about this program is that the community health worker is the only person in the school who's not out to get you, right? So if you're like walking in the hall without a hall pass, our community health care worker doesn't care. We're not going to take you to the principal's office. We're just here to support you, right? Whereas everybody else in the school system really has a responsibility for discipline and that kind of thing. So I think they're a trusted adult who's there really just to help the kids. When we wrote this grant, there was a whole other side of this, the MVP side that Marquette talked to you about. So one vision was to implement Safer Teens. The other vision was develop a youth-led firearm violence prevention effort. And it's been amazing to watch this. It's been much more successful than any of us talked about when we were thinking about developing it. Yeah. So really kudos to Lauren, Marquette, and the whole group. And I wish you could see this group because they're a lively bunch. And I may have to ask Doug for his opinion here in a second, but they hosted this Youth Violence Prevention Summit in November.
Yes, Thursday, November 13th, 2025 from 8 to 3 p.m. at the Fall Center at 425
And so this is actually kind of where the magic started to happen in my mind, in that we had a youth-led effort and we had CHWs embedded in the schools who could talk about this youth-led effort. And then we started to, have synergy between these two programs that I don't think we necessarily had up until that point. And I mean, it was fabulous. Doug, do you want to make a couple comments maybe about, Doug was there, so I won't give you my highly biased view.
Thank you, Brian. Because Brian invited me over, and actually I had gotten something from Lauren earlier, and so it was on my calendar. It was something I was really hoping I could do, and I was so glad that I took the time away from other things to watch this happen. I walked in. There were 120. How many kids you have? About 120 kids from all over the county, interacting. Not much at first. They were all in their groups. But by the middle of the day, by the end of the day, the kids were talking to each other about what they'd learned, and there's some excitement in the room, and I hope there's continued commitment. I think as Marquette has told us very well, we have a role to encourage that in the youth, with the youth in our lives, and help them see the importance of their voices being heard. And I was blown away by the questions and the you didn't bring your beach ball, but the interactivity of these youth that didn't know each other when they walked in the room was amazing. And so I have a lot of hope for this program, and we've got to find a way to keep it going. So.
So don't take it from us. You heard it from Doug. Can I have the next slide? So one of the activities that they had at the summit was, maybe you guys are aware of this, but you can do a thing, like if you all had phones, we could ask you a question, and you could make a response, and then a word cloud develops based on the most prevalent answer that the crowd gives. And I'm sorry about the slide. I took it from the back row of the Frohenthal, so it's a little blurry and crooked. But the question was, what do you find to be protective factors for avoiding violence? And Jesus was at the center. And turns out the lead researcher over at the University of Michigan is Jewish. And so I was texting him, hey, you're not going to believe this. And so I asked around because, we're here tonight and there aren't any youth here, right? And so I asked my daughter, I asked my niece who's over at Hillsdale. So she's on the conservative side. My daughter's at Marquette in Milwaukee. She's on the liberal side. And they both say, hey, kids are scared. We're in a time of extreme uncertainty. Kids are really scared. They want something to hang on to. And so there's an opportunity here, I think, that we're all missing. If I can get my last slide. And that is, I think youth want to be part of a faith community. Faith community is protective, a protective factor for violence prevention. And so I put this together, but it's more complicated than this because I could only figure out 3 things on the pie chart. But, we already have a little bit of a blueprint here, so we have Safer Teens, which is already working with Muskegon violence prevention. We're here tonight. There's a huge opportunity for the faith community to become involved. There's an opportunity for law enforcement to become involved. I mean, this circle could keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Lauren and I were at a meeting this morning, breakfast meeting this morning, really kind of talking about how do we come up with a community vision, game plan, set of goals that we can all align around in this topic of violence prevention. So, we're a community of faith, as Marquette said. We're all in this together. We all want this to work. And just appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to you and to enjoy some of the great Methodist food again. Thank you, whoever whoever put that together. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And I think that probably leads into our final presentation almost seamlessly. I learned of the coalition that St. John's Episcopal and the Church of the Dunes in Grand Haven had, and they each have violence prevention committees, task forces in their churches, and they're working together. And I didn't know what I was walking into when I went to the first meeting, but except for the fact that they've been the most welcoming group, and it's been a joy to sit at their table as often as I've been able to. If anybody wants to get a glimpse of what they do beyond the few slides that they have here, I have one of their agendas. They're 4-page agendas of things that are action items and information items, and they're about what Brian said, doing something. And I told them when I first started attending their meetings, I was pretty open about it, I think. I said, I want to bring this to Muskegon somehow. And so I've been kind of bugging, Robert and some of the other folks about when can gun violence get on this agenda, because I'm really hoping that you'll be inspired when you see how these two churches work together, how maybe 4, 5, 6, 8 of our churches could start working together to support programs like what we've heard about. So I'm going to ask Nancy and Val to come up, and they'll have their last presentation. So thank you.
Thank you for the invitation to be here this evening. Doug, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. I'm Nancy Collins. Sorry, this is going to be hard. I'm Nancy Collins. I'm a member of St. John's Episcopal Church in Grand Haven, and I'm the ministry lead for the gun violence prevention team. And are we ever sad that that's the name that we picked? I mean, that has been the most contentious issue for my team lately, is because it seems to be a barrier working with law enforcement. It seems to be a barrier working with the schools or, developing relationships. And my team won't change the name. But Val Martin, who is the ministry leader at the United Methodist Church of the Dunes, has had better luck that way.
Yeah, we did change our name. I don't know how helpful it's been, but it's now Gun Safety and Violence Prevention. So we tried to put the safety piece first, thinking that's going to get people to listen. So.
Go figure. You'd think that, we want to prevent gun violence. That's apparently dangerous, bad, in some people's eyes. When I learned yesterday that we could do a slide presentation, I started thinking, like, what am I going to do? And I had an email that came from don't change yet, please. Go back to the beginning. I had an email from Sojourners, and it had this picture in it, this illustration by John Krause. It had been on the cover of their June 2025 magazine. And the artist was asking, how do a few people move a large rock up a steep hill? And when I first saw it, I thought, that's us. That is us when we're doing gun violence, gun safety, and violence prevention work. It's like, it is a huge issue. It's a huge problem, and it's impacting everybody's lives. And a lot of times I have felt like that one individual trying to push the rock. After the Oxford shootings, the Episcopal churches, especially the diocese on the east side of the state, became more active in the gun violence prevention issue. And they were part of the folks who started End Gun Violence Michigan. And my parish started a ministry related to that. And I can tell you, I like it a lot better being with all those people on the right-hand side of the rock, and we might be chiseling away a little bit at a time, but I honestly believe that we're making a difference now, change together. Vale asked if she could, attend our meetings, because in Grand Haven at that time there wasn't anyone else doing this. Being the conservative Republican community that it was, gun violence prevention means gun control to everybody. Go figure. But Vale wanted to be a part of the group, and it's like, yeah, the more the merrier, come on. And while she was there, thought she would just go back to her church, the Church of the Dunes, and see if there was an interest. And there was a huge interest. And so her group started meeting, our group was meeting at the Episcopal Church, but we have worked together. And this slide shows one of our first events was the Silence to Violence March through Grand Haven, downtown Grand Haven. And it's members of her church, members of my church, members of the community, and Attorney General Dana Nessel was there for that walk. So together, could you change the slide, please? When I did this slide, I started it out as partnering. And I thought, we're not partners, we're family in this. So I changed it. As family, we've advocated for the adoption of sensible gun safety legislation. We've shared information intended to prevent firearm injuries and deaths, distributed gun locks. You'll see it in a slide in a minute. We pray, and there are remembrances, and we raise awareness of gun violence as a public health issue through art activation. And that has been really a lot of fun. A lot of work, mostly Val's doing the work, I'm having the fun. But it's been great. So go to the next slide, please. So advocacy, some of the things we've done, and we've done annually now, is the March to Silence the Violence. And so last June, it's a statewide kind of encouragement, or communities all over the state getting involved to do something related to gun violence prevention. And so we do the march, and we march silently, and we carried these signs, trying to raise awareness of these aren't numbers, these are people. And the loss of any person is a loss to all of us. And we also threw in an extra few signs because we have been working on this project for over a year. It's a big one for us. So we've also done, the letter writing, letters to our representatives, Republicans, conservative, folks who get funding from the NRA. But we meet them, they listen to us. They don't do anything that we want them to do necessarily, but they listen to us. So that has been good. So those are some of the advocacy things that we've done. And I guess the things that we do kind of all overlap with one another. We also have developed and share information. So could I have the next slide, please? In 2023, advocates for gun safety legislation, we were elated. There was some really great legislation that was passed. The thing is, if there's legislation passed and people don't know about it, are they going to follow? So thanks to Vale's daughter and Vale's editing, we have these really nice brochures that introduce people to a summary of what that new legislation that went into effect of February 2024 is and what's required of us. One of the requirements is to secure your guns if there's reasonable expectation that a minor might be present. And based on what has happened in our community, because we are all part of this community just recently, we know how important that is and the tragedies that happen when young people have access to weapons. And it's devastating. I feel so sorry for the families that lost children, the community surrounding them. So we've tried to educate people and by providing information in these brochures. Val is a really great writer. And she's done, you can't read it, you can't obviously read it, but she regularly prepares communications to go to county commissioners, letters to the editors, opinions. This, what you can't read, but this letter represented, it was entitled, "It Doesn't Have to Be This Way." Again, trying to provide information to people and change hearts and minds. And she's done that really well. Next slide, please. Again, related to the Michigan legislation that's in effect and requiring people to secure their guns, we've distributed gun locks. And at the United Methodist Church of the Dunes, they've, so you probably heard what's happened with our, maybe you haven't heard with our county commissioners, but there were a lot of programs that a couple of years ago were curtailed, and our health department would distribute safe bags. And on a fear that they would be used for illicit things or something, the county commissioners said, we're not going to do it anymore. So the team at the United Methodist Church of the Dunes started packing safe bags. And we added gun locks to those safe bags. And they were distributed and in large part by the two women that you see. Nope, sorry. I'm just waving. I need to go back to the other the two women that you see on the right, Nancy Parsons and Kate Cole, had a background in child care, early and contacts. So through their efforts, we've distributed more than 500 of these bags in Ottawa County, or in the northern part of Ottawa County, which is, I mean, we wanted more, but it turns out that's really a pretty good number. Like, we want to do more. And so if we go on to the next one, one of the things that we do at St. John's, and our team leads evening prayer once a month, and it's a remembrance of people who've died in Ottawa, Kent, Muskegon, and Allegan counties, because those, when we decided where we were going to keep track of deaths, those were the areas that our elected officials covered. So we thought, if we could share with them the people who are dying in their districts, that they would be more inclined to make changes and support legislation that would protect people. And maybe someday, but and as part of that, we started a paper tree, and every time somebody dies, we've added a leaf to it. And at the United Methodist Church of the Dunes, with Jill Miller, the woman in the front, kind of taking the lead on it, they have developed this beautiful quilt that's shown in the hallways at their church. That, again, is a representation of the people in those 4 counties who have been killed because of gun violence over the last couple of years now. It's worth making a trip to the United Methodist Church of the Dunes to see this quilt. It's beautiful. Next slide, thank you. Art activism. We've done quite a bit of it, as a matter of fact. One of the first things that we did was a die-in. With the help of our friends at the Methodist Church, we made 124 of these tombstones, because at the time that we put them up, there were an average of 124 people dying every day in the United States because of gun violence. So we had 124 tombstones on the front lawn at the Episcopal Church, right across from City Hall on the main street of town. So that got a lot of attention. And they were also displayed at the front driveway, going up to the Church of the Dunes at a later date. So there was another different group of people who would see them. But again, to raise awareness of this, we've done, what you see here was Empty Shoes, Lost Lives. And with the help of folks from St. John's and the Church of the Dunes, we collected 70 pairs of shoes representing 50 adults and 20 children. Because in Michigan, due to domestic violence, 50 adults and 20 children die each year by gunfire. It was kind of incredible to see people stopping their cars on Washington Avenue and trying to figure out, what are those Episcopalians doing now? But it did get some attention. But the most ambitious thing that we have taken on, next slide please, is the Soul Box Project. And I had this dream, and it's like, gosh, I remember this is going to really age me. I remember the AIDS quilt and visiting it at Western Michigan, and just how much that impacted me. And it's like, I wish we could do something like that. And then Vale comes to me and says, hey, look at it. I found this Soul Box project. Do you think we could do that? Well, Vale has done the yeoman's job of moving this project along and making it happen, along with a coordinating committee that did not include me. I am capable of folding origami boxes. I found, I wasn't sure that I could do that, but I did. When they first started making these panels from the boxes that our community had helped us made, 2 people needed to work on them, and the first panel took 12 hours. But they got really good at it. They could, 2 people could do it in 6 hours by the time we finished. So I want Vale to tell you all about this. And we're on the eve. You're seeing one of the first panels. They're going to be exhibited at St. John's with a reception this Saturday. So we can't show you the exhibit or images of it, but we can invite you to come to either St. John's or I'm sorry, could I have the next slide, please? Either to St. John's or to the Methodist Church of the Dunes to see, experience this exhibit. Thank you.
I have some posters with the details of Saturday and then the following places where you can see the exhibit. So if you want to take one of those back to your church, feel free to do that. There will be 1,406 of these boxes on display Saturday. 1,406 because that's the number of people we lose each year in Michigan to gun violence. More than half of those are suicide deaths. What we did in order to use this as an education piece is we gathered small groups starting a little over a year ago. And in those small groups, we asked people to think about someone that they knew that had been impacted by gun violence. And if they didn't know anyone, we had information because you couldn't turn on your TV and not see information about a gun violence victim. So there was discussion and reflection as people put together these origami boxes. You make the bottom and you make the top, and then you can put some kind of message or sometimes a photo of folks on the boxes. And I don't know how many small groups we had together, well over 50. And folks would sometimes make more than one because they found the activity encouraging, I think. There's a piece of hope in making a box and remembering a person. So each panel has 98 boxes in it. So we're going to have 14 of these when the display is all put together, and they connect together to form one long piece, like the AIDS quilt formed one long piece. And it's a national project, so at some point, maybe we'll get a call and say, we want you to bring your boxes to Washington, D.C. They've been on the mall a few years ago, but maybe they'll be coming back again. So we have lots of people who had a hand in this project, and so we're hoping that they all come to see what their handiwork has made. And then we hope the display continues the education effort so that as it goes other places, people will say, I need to know more about this, and I need to know what I can do about this. So we hope that it inspires that kind of activism.
So please know, we would love to have you come and visit either at St. John's or at the Church of the Dunes. On February 22nd, the whole exhibit is going to be in the sanctuary at the United Methodist Church of the Dunes in Grand Haven, and they're going to have a service centered on that. There's information here. If you would share it and invite people to come, that'd be great. So I've told you how important, at least to me, it has been to work together. I hope you'll work together. And as we've been sitting here, and Doug provided the information about the lobby day or with legislators in March. Some of our team had gone to that before, and we have talked about, wouldn't it be cool to have a bus and take a bunch of people to that? Well, if you want to take a bus with us, let's see if we can make it happen this year or next year, and make sure our legislators know how important this is to their constituents back home. Last slide, please. We're saying together we can bring about change. It might be slow, but it's going to happen if we work together. And it's going to happen faster together than if we tried to do it by ourselves. So thank you very much again for having us and listening to us.
Yeah, moderate some questions there.
Jennifer De La Cruz was introduced at dinner. Just thank you for being here, and hopefully you have messages that you can carry with you on the next, wherever you're heading in your work, okay? And Delphine Hodson, everybody knows Delphine. She's here. Stand up, Delphine. And just a reminder that the Muskegon County Cooperating Churches will be holding their prayer walk again this summer in August.
George is reminding me, George Moss from Philip Chapel, Amy Church, I'm going to do it the wrong way. All right. Couple things Muskegon County Cooperating Churches has got going on, because yes, we're concerned about violence as well. Georgia reminds me that we have a peace training. Whoa, this thing really is hot. Peace training coming up on March 21st, I believe it is, and I think it's going to be at First Congregational Church. We will have it in the information on our branch's newsletter. It'll be on our Facebook page. It'll be on our web page as well. And then in August, we do a peace walk here in Muskegon at Hackley Park. We used to walk through the community, but we decided that all of us were getting a little bit older, and so we stayed in Hackley Park this past year. Each congregation that's involved has a station of their own, has a little message and a prayer, and it's worked out very well, and we'd love to have more people involved. So this is one of our big things as well. The Reverend Lucinda Barnum-Stakerda is going to be our peace coordinator, so we are working on nonviolence and peace as well. Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot, wasn't it? And going back to Marquette, your thought of thriving, surviving and thriving. In the world today, it feels a lot like we're just trying to survive. We talk a lot around this place at Temple of order, disorder, and reorder. In our faith tradition, we say life, death, resurrection. And it seems like we get stuck in disorder. And yet, you continue to remind each person here tonight and our communities that reorder is just around the corner, or a change. We can make a difference. And so, to try to pray, we talked about the loss tonight of a lot of lives. not just numbers and statistics, but lives. And sometimes we don't have the words to memorialize people. They were parts of families. They were living human beings with gifts and graces. And but what we can do is take a moment and offer a prayer of silence. And in that silence, the living and the deceased find each other in that solitude. And we can come together in that. And so I just invite you to just kind of get comfortable for a moment. We're going to use a singing bowl, so yeah, it's permissible in a Christian church. But just to echo these words with me, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. And all God's people said, along with our boiler drum in the background, thank you for coming this evening. More than ever, you reminded us tonight to stay safe, to stay in love with your Creator, and to stay in love with your neighbor. Blessings.